Deadlock Station. Welcome back to Demo, the show where we demo the latest demos from games coming to consoles and PCs soon this year. Today we're taking a look at Deadlock Station, a tactical RTS that cleverly combines the action of an auto battler with the stat management and progression of a roguelike RPG. You control a squad of various specialized synthetic mercenaries while simultaneously uncovering the truth about an occurrence called the Event. Let's take a look. Deadlock Station is a straightforward, level-based gameplay loop delivered in the form of linear runs with some branching pathways that are punctuated by a hub world where you can upgrade your player characters. It has some really nicely drawn pixel art and playful animation behind it, with some impressively done character dialogue scenes, but what I really think stands out is the game's attention to well-balanced color. The game is flushed with saturation and eye-catching color, often used in the UI to familiarize the player with certain character classes or item rarities, resources, and combat functions. All of the character work is very impressive, and the design is cartoony and inviting, which brings a lighter take to the post-apocalyptic setting. The game isn't too bogged down by menus or tons of tutorial reading, but there is a heavy focus on story narrative, so there can be a bit of cutscene dialogue to thumb through at times. The game style has that gritty and overgrown aesthetic of a world lost to a catastrophe, with various barrels and debris littering the vacant stretches of field and streets you come across. The pixel art maintains a subdued and desaturated look for the background elements, while giving a bright and intense color pop to the characters and enemies. It's clear this game was done by an experienced pixel artist who knows when and where to draw the player's focus with the use of contrast and game juice. The style graphically feels a bit like Into the Breach, but has the non-outline look of games like Moonlighter. Normally I'm more in favor of outlines in my sprite work, but when the contrast pops as much as a game like this, it actually works quite well. The menus are thankfully very easy to read and navigate. All of the shop interfaces and iconography translate intuitively and don't leave you scratching your head at any point trying to figure out how to use them. The only hitch that I found in my play was that some items require you to click and hold the mouse button in order to use them. This is obviously to help keep the player from wasting a valuable resource on potentially the wrong character, but otherwise, the design and feel of the menus sit great with the game's style, and the HUD elements during combat are legible and informative. Definitely satisfying UI. The game's music has a pretty catchy main theme that will play almost exclusively throughout the demo run. While it is a motivating cyberpunk-style electro thumper of a beat, the song does unfortunately have a snag at the end of its loop, and it strangely just doesn't loop perfectly. This wouldn't be a big deal if there was some other song to bounce between, but with this being the only song, the gap in the loop becomes more evident as time goes on, and especially because it happens right at the height of the song's excitement. This is strictly for the battle phases, and for what it's worth, the cutscenes in between fights in the hub world have a theme of their own, which sonically does work with the game's visuals. As most of the game's interaction is in the form of selecting options, you will be clicking buttons and listening to a lot of dialogue, chat blips, and selection prompt noises. These are all unobtrusive, and for how often you hear them, they don't grind your ears down, so that's a plus. The battle sequences are where most of the real sound effect work is done for this game, and battles sound chaotic and lively with gunfire and explosions. Enemies and players alike perishing with grunts, barrels bursting, and scrap metal walls being chipped away at. Controls are very simple. It's a good old-fashioned mouse-click game. This is always hard to judge due to its simplicity, but it can also be easy to mess up if you're the developer. Sometimes you can try to do too much with a simple design. Thankfully, Deadlock Station sticks to its guns and just asks the player to worry about the left click of their mouse to do just about everything that's required of them. Skill comes down to the strategic outfitting of your soldiers, informed selection of skill point spending and in-run enhancements, and placement of your soldiers on the battlefield to ensure the fastest victories with the least amount of damage received. You don't have much agency beyond that to influence outcomes, so you need to be smart about how you kit out your squad, what items you deploy, and when to use your special abilities in the most advantageous way. There is a flow to lock into once you get the hang of the way the game plays, and I can imagine the battles opening up even further to include more punishing enemy types and beneficial upgrades for your soldiers in your squad. You begin to understand where your team's strengths and weaknesses lie, and a path starts to carve out as you invest skill points into your favorite soldier types. For what it's worth, this game offered a much longer demo than I had anticipated. It's always a matter of hitting the sweet spot between giving away the house and leaving them hungry for more. In this case, at least, I wasn't entirely bored with the extended runtime. If I'm going to spend an hour with a game, I'd rather not have it ripped away from me after such an investment of time. But in Deadlock Station's case, I found myself eager for that just one more run feeling that roguelikes strive for. And in my multiple mission fails, I bear down even more and determined to finish strong. That's not to be discounted. The auto-battler genre became a bit tired to me almost immediately. Placing game pieces onto a battlefield and just letting them do the fighting just seemed too hands-off for my liking. In this case, I found the overdone cliches of the modern auto-battler to be less grating, with the inclusion of special attacks, equipable upgrades and armor, and dynamic control over how the individual chess pieces behave. This helps add to the unique feel that Deadlock gives. Along with the random story beat or character banter to break up the fighting, it offers a bit more substance than just the basic place character, press play game. With the mechanics being simplified like many auto-battlers, the player can mostly sit back and watch their efforts play out with minimal need to interfere during the combat sections. I would gasp when characters got killed in battle, and was thoroughly satisfied when I would narrowly emerge victorious from a tough wave of enemies. Deadlock Station's strengths lie in its great use of pixel art and contrast of color, an engaging strategy system where you have a bit more agency than the typical auto-battler, and an interesting storyline that leaves a lot of mystery to be discovered. The cons, however, lie in its slightly predictable formula. The music in this game does need a bit of work, as it does get a little tiresome to hear the same song looped over and over again. Deadlock Station also suffers from a mildly shallow gameplay experience, which again calls back to the slightly predictable format. If we can expect this game to fall into the $15 range, I wouldn't see any problem paying that for what the game has to offer so far. Typically, I'm not a fan of sit back and watch games, but the fact that Deadlock Station puts a bit more agency in your hands between fights sets this apart from other generic auto-battlers in my book. If you enjoy well-drawn and animated pixel art, which this game surely delivers on, and solid roguelike fundamentals with an interesting and fleshed-out game world, this one will not disappoint. Deadlock Station gives the player the proper amount of juice and arcadey feeling to set up risk and reward properly, which easily will push you along into your next fight, hoping for a special piece of armor or helpful armament to give your team the necessary edge. Deadlock Station is a great little narrative adventure that is easy to pick up and play for a few hours, or mindlessly lose yourself in for an entire night. Thanks for watching this episode of Demo. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and we will catch you in the next one.